And welcome back to the Old Gatbox Podcast. Before we head out to Memphis, Tennessee for the opening round of the PGA Tour Fed Ex Cup playoffs, all this brought to you by our good friends at Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic. Check it out, casadecampo.com, the best golf resort in the Caribbean. All right, before we head to Memphis, last night, people have been asking me, have you seen Happy Gilmore 2, the Adam Sandler sequel to the ultra-successful Happy Gilmore movie that came out 29 years ago. Amazing that it's been that long ago, but I did sit down and I watched it last night, an hour and 57 minutes on Netflix, and it was 2 hours of the most outrageous, slapstick Adam Sandler comedy that you'll ever sit down and watch. I can't say it was a great movie. It was just non-stop, relentless comedy, one-liners, and just a montage of cameos of Adam's friends and some of the biggest, most legendary names in golf. It truly was amazing. At the beginning of the movie, Nancy Lopez was in it. I didn't know Nancy Lopez had a cameo. Also, Nelly Corda with Nancy Lopez. They kind of played a significant role with Shooter, where he was being held at the time. Paige Spiranek, the social media influencer, pretty lady who has millions and millions of followers. She was in the movie. Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. He played a waiter in the movie and really had some funny lines and kind of out of nowhere. It's Travis Kelce doing his thing. Of course, the great Jack Nicklaus. Some nice back and forths with Travis Kelce. And he was funny. Lee Trevino, Nick Faldo, Freddie Couples. They were all at the ultra legacy table, if you will. Of course, the modern day player, Scotty Scheffler, was really funny. And the movie ends with Scotty with some great lines, and I really appreciated where he was coming from. John Daly played John Daly, and he didn't have to really stretch his character too far, and he was an integral part of this absolutely crazy, loony movie. Rory was in it, Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris had a nice back and forth with Adam Sandler. Vern Lundquist, who was the original announcer 30 years ago, reappeared as the play-by-play guy for all that was going on, and I will say it was just completely outrageous. Would I sit down and watch it again? No. The answer is no, but I'm glad I saw it once, and I'm anxious to talk to the guys in Memphis as I'm sure it took a week or so out of their schedule, early mornings, late nights, to get all this done for the Adam Sandler movie. It was outrageous. Speaking of Memphis, it is the opening round of the playoffs. There's 3 legs. It'll be Memphis this week, Maryland next week, and then Eastlake in Atlanta for the Tour Championship. This is the Fed Ex St. Jude Championship. Of course, the FedEx corporate offices are right there on the property back on the 6th hole. It wraps around, pretty impressive. And obviously, all this for the Children's Hospital at St. Jude, which does such an amazing job. This is a big event for the PGA Tour. TPC Southwind underwent a complete facelift after last year's championship. Much needed after decades and decades. It's just time to dig up, replant, redo the tee boxes, the fairways, the greens, the bunkers. The greens start shrinking. So you reconfigure those. And again, with modern technology, some of the greens will take on a different dynamic. And I know the players are excited to get there. It's going to be hot as always, but maybe not as hot as it has been in years past. 69 out of 70 will be there. Rory opts out. Of course, Rory, a guy who has more than 20 wins. He is exempt for life on the PGA Tour. He can pick and choose when and where he will play. And since there's no rules in place, this could change in the future. Since there's no rules that allows you or tells you not to skip one of the playoff events, Rory is opting out. He'll be in Atlanta. He's number 2 in FedEx Cup points. You know, the more I've kind of looked into it, Rory and his family, they moved into a new house a couple of weeks before the Open Championship in London, England. That's where they are right now. Of course, they have the home in Jupiter. So he chose not to come back to the US of A for 3 weeks in a row, just 2 weeks. And as he has said, he will start playing less and less on the PGA Tour. Only 14 tournaments up to this point. For the man who's won 3 times, including the Masters, it's been a phenomenal year. But I think Rory, with now his home base in London, I think he'll play a few more select tournaments on the DP World Tour. He'll play less on the PGA Tour. And much like the big names later in their careers, whether it was Jack or Tiger, They will pick and choose where they play, when they play, and there will be tournaments just like this week where they will opt out. And so you just have to kind of go with the flow, and 69 out of 70 will be there. Obviously, Scottie Scheffler, after a couple weeks off, the number one player in the world by a wide margin. He is the prohibitive favorite to win this event. A year ago, came in after 2 weeks off, and Scottie was a little rusty at the beginning of the tournament. It took him a little time. Ended up finishing, I think, 7th. Hideki Matsuyama won the tournament, and I suspect it'll be the same scenario for Scottie. Kind of a slow go at the beginning, and then as the week and the weekend unfolds, Scottie will be right there to see what happens. All the points this week are quadrupled, so some of the players obviously have an opportunity to move up in the FedEx Cup standings. And you want to finish inside the top 50 after this week, not only to advance to next week, but if you finish top 50 after this week, you're in all the signature events in 2026. Jordan Spieth, for example, inside the top 50, wants to stay there. Ricky Fowler in the mid-60s wants to have a big finish, maybe a top 5 finish, maybe a win, which would get him in the top 50 for next year. So there's still a lot on the line for these guys to play for. And the one guy who I am really keeping an eye on, and it's not just because I saw him last night and he had some funny lines in the Happy Gilmore 2 movie, but Xander Schauffele, the X-Man, a year ago, 2 major championships. This year, hampered by a rib injury earlier in the year. He's only played 13 tournaments up to this point. But lately, starting with the U.S. Open, tied for 12th, solid there. And then as we went overseas, top 10, finished T7 at the Genesis Scottish Open, a T8 at the Open Championship. So now with 2 weeks off, well rested, motivated, I think he's ready to put the hammer down and finish strong. Xander Schauffele, my pick to click this week in Atlanta. And a year ago, he finished second to Hideki Matsuyama. And if you remember, Hideki stumbled down the stretch, and Xander was right there to potentially get in the playoff. But Hideki held on there in the end to win the playoff event a year ago. Also keeping an eye on Chris Gotterup, who is certainly the hottest man behind Scottie Scheffler, took last week off. I think Chris now looks to get right back on the horse this week in Memphis, and the way he is playing, and especially putting, I think this golf course sets up really, really well for Chris Gotterup. Keep an eye on the hot golfer, as Keegan Bradley is now putting together and formulating his Ryder Cup team that'll be announced in a couple of weeks. And Cameron Young, a winner last week at the Wyndham Championship, his first win on the PGA Tour, long hitter, great iron player, coming off the best putting week of his life. More than 10 shots on the field in the strokes gained putting department. He never putted that well, and we'll see if he can keep the hammer down and keep that putter knocking him in from long range. I mean, it really was an incredible week for Cameron Young. So there's just some of the guys. And I know Keegan, as he keeps an eye on these hot golfers, because 2 years ago when Zach Johnson left him and Lucas Glover off the team, they were the hot golfers heading into the playoffs, and they got left off. So I think Keegan wants the hot team heading to the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black. And by the way, Chris Gotterup and Cameron Young are guys who grew up in the northeastern part of the United States, Gotterup in the New Jersey area, and obviously Cameron Young, Schenectady, New York. So good stuff there. Excited to be in Memphis this week. Dial us in if you're so inclined on PGA Tour Radio on SiriusXM, and keep watching us here on the Old Gab Box podcast. You can catch us on YouTube. Also, wherever you get your pods, we're available. And also on Mondays on Tide 100.9 in Birmingham and Tuscaloosa. Oh yeah, roll Tide, everybody.